1917 or 1915, somewhere in about there. I was a little kid. I remember, first thing I remember was me laying in bed with the shades all down and Mom taking care of me, and I was had what they call black hysteria. Things were funny then, and when my mother would go out of the room, I'd sneak out of bed and look out the window, and on a hot summer day, and I'd see the lawn across the street, and there was a dog going across the lawn, and he'd stop every few minutes. And as he stopped, we'd move on, and then there'd be something small laying on the grass behind him, and I didn't know what it was all about. But finally found out the dog was having pups. And it was then about the same time that I started to realize that my dad owned this boathouse. Well, it was nothing but pleasant memories. We could hear in the summer evening the strains of an orchestra playing at one of the dance halls down at the amusement park. And that was the days when that song came out, The Bells Are Ringing for Me and My Gal, and those memories. And we lived in a house that the front of it overlooked the Long Island Sound. There was a stone wall and a big row of trees. We used to go out there on a summer evening and see the moon shining on the water, a big full moon and shining on the water, and the sweet strains of that orchestra playing these songs of those days. And we finally got a few boats of our own. My dad had a boat. It was about 35 or 32 feet, somewhere in there, cabin cruiser. And each of my brothers had motorboats. And we also had a rowboat with an outboard motor on it. And then it came the days when World War I broke out. My brother Eddie went in the war, and he came out of it all right. And I had an uncle, Private J.E. Nagel. He was in the Spanish-American War. We had a rifle that he found and carved on it, found by Private J.E. Nagel on San Juan Hill, Puerto Rico or someplace down in there. And his side of the family, we had a grandmother we called her Nana. She was 72 years old, and she could do an Irish jig as good as any young person I ever saw at the age of 72. She was very great. And my mother, my father, they were the happiest I've ever seen anybody be together. They were always kidding around, laughing, and they could be serious, but they always loved to laugh, the both of them. As for me, my childhood, I just have pleasant memories of my childhood. My brother Red, William, my brother Arthur, the three of us used to pal out together. Oh, we built houses in the woods, and, you know, in little huts like. And we used to get some of the neighbors' bantam hens, and we'd put them under milk crates to keep. That was our chicken yard. And then find the neighbor did sort of frowned on us taking her chickens. So she come over one time to get her chickens back, and my brother grabbed the chicken by the neck, swung him over his head, and threw him at her. And of course, they went at her, but the chicken's head was still in his hand. And then there was times when we shouldn't have done these things, but we'd sit in a tree and wait for her to go past, and we'd let down a line with a fish hook in it, and we'd catch her wig and pull her wig off, and she'd really go into a dance of some kind and yelling, and of course she was Austrian, and she'd revert back to her own tongue, and I don't know what she was saying. But we shouldn't have done that either, because after all, it was a fish hook, and we could have got one of her eyes just as well as her hair, you know, but we were lucky and just got her hair. But we had a lot of fun. we used to get a big bed sheet and have 4 guys hold it underneath a big cherry tree. And we'd go up in a cherry tree and we'd shake the branches, and we'd get a half a ton of cherries, wild cherries, or big oxheart cherries as we knew them in those days. And we'd go swimming. And we only lived about a half a block from the creek where the boathouse was. It was a pretty wide creek, and we'd swim down in there. And then some days we'd all get together. In a hot summer day, in the morning, we had a slight haze. And that way we'd know that it was going to be a nice day when we saw that slight haze on the ground. And of course we'd hear the locusts. And when you hear the locusts, you knew it was going to be a nice day and fair and no rain. Of course, this all happened up in New York, in the Bronx. It was all country at that time. And in fact, when we moved to this place called Classen Point, why, the stagecoach had just stopped running, and the trolley cars took their place. And that's how countrified it was, a real country. And we used to, so that we'd even smoke rabbits out. That's how, and houses were half to a mile apart up there. We just had a lot of fun, and we'd go to farms, and we'd take some salt and a piece of wax paper, and we'd sit in the farmyard and eat their tomatoes. Of course, they frowned on that too. So I remember one day I said to my brothers and my friends, I said, "Hey, I found a new farm." And they'd say, "Where?" I said, "I can't tell you." I said, "Come on, I'll show you." So I took them all over to this farm. And it happened to be a great big rock there, I guess about 1 story high or something like that, 15, 20 feet high. And we were all sitting down eating tomatoes, and the next thing I knew, I was the only one eating tomatoes, and I see all the rest of them, my brothers and fellows, up on a rock. So I didn't pay any attention to them. I figured, why aren't they eating tomatoes? And then I knew. I heard a noise behind me, and there was a flock of about 50 geese, and one big gander is leading that flock, and they're heading right for me. Well, it was a little bit too late, but I tried to reach that rock, but I didn't make it. I guess I was about 12, 13 years old. And this leader of the pack, this big gander, he reached out with his neck and he grabbed hold of the seat of my pants and he got a little flesh in with it. And with his wings, he just beat the stuffing out of me. And I was hollering and hollering. And all I could see was that my brothers and all these guys up on top of the rock, they're just laying and holding their bellies laughing at me getting beaten by a big goose. I'll never forget that. Boy, and they can hit. Them wings are bony, and he just wailed the tar out of me. But there was a lot of funny things happened up in those days. There was a time when it was sad, when these mothers, 4 mothers, had promised their children that if they got promoted in school, they would take them all down to the beach. Well, there was a big cement bridge there with a hole in the center of the bridge where the water can go in and out, let the tide in and out. But it happened that this hole had been stopped up by driftwood and stuff like that, and the water didn't go through anymore. So the water found a way of going underneath this stone and cement bridge. Well, the outcome of it was when the water would go one way, there would be a big whirlpool where the water went down underneath the bridge to come out the other side. And when it went the other way, why, there was a whirlpool on the other side. Well, it just happened to be on the side where these people were having a picnic because the children were promoted. And when they saw that whirlpool start, when the tide changed, they thought it would be fun. And they all swam out to get in that whirlpool and have fun. Well, they didn't realize the water was sucking down like it would in the kitchen sink. And they all got in there and, well, they were sucked down into underneath the bridge. There was about 5 of them died that day, including a lifeguard who had saved one of them, one of the boys. And and the lifeguard died. And anyway, one of them, they found them all except one, and they had to wait for the tide to change to find him. And finally, about 10 or 11 o'clock at night, the tide changed, and he came up. He was caught under the bridge, and his mother was there, and she was just a raving maniac, about 14, 15 years old. And she just screamed all night long. Well, that scared her. It left a bad memory in our minds. And the outcome of it was, why, that night about 10 o'clock, my mother wanted me to go to the store to get something for lunch tomorrow, for all us kids were going to school or something. I had to get something anyway. And while I was doing this, I had to go through an apple orchard, across a dirt road, past a great big lilac bush, under a great big oxheart cherry tree, and past a mansion that was 100 years old. It was Japanese type with curved roof and everything, that no one lived in. And then past a big redwood tree, sort of. It was sort of like a red, it had red leaves and everything on it. And then to the store. Well, I was scared with all that happening up there on that beach, you know. And I really was running. I wanted to get to the store and home quick, so I would be out there in the dark. Well, I was going to the store, and I was really moving. At least I thought I was, until a screech owl screeched right over my head as I was passing under the cherry tree. Well, believe me, as I said, I thought I was moving before. You should have seen this boy move then. It sounded like a woman screaming, and I just hit the high spots after that. I never touched ground. I don't think until I hit the store. But as I say, we had lots of fun. My brother Eddie, he came home from the war, and he was well known up around the area. He belonged to the yacht club and all those things. My brother Jim, he played semi-pro ball. Then he joined the Navy, and he became captain of the Navy baseball team at Rhode Island. And then they shipped him out to the champion baseball team of the Navy on the USS California on the west coast of the United States. He became captain of that team, the champion baseball team of the Navy. They made a 50,000-mile trip through Australia, New Zealand, and all those places, and beat all the teams they came across, and including the Sector Ball Club of Honolulu. They beat them all. Well, he finally came home from the Navy, and my brother Judge, his name was Ernest, but we always call him Judge. As he was a kid now, he jumped off a bridge one time onto a moving freight train, a gondola full of sand. He figured it'd be soft, and he jumped off on the bridge. The other kids dared him, I guess. And he landed in the sand, but the sand was it's harder than people think it is. And anyway, they took him to the hospital. His heart had dropped quite a bit from the jolt he received. And, well, he only had about 6 months or a year to live. He was a kid. Well, he finally passed away at the age of 60 or somewhere in there. He pulled along. And my brother Eddie joined the Second World War, and he was hit by a Japanese 25 caliber bullet in the chest, but that didn't get him. That didn't bother him so much. It bothered him, but I mean, it didn't kill him. In fact, it was so close that they couldn't even remove it. So they left it in him. But he was on a staff of Admiral Nimitz, General E.C. Long, and General Vandergrift in the United States Marine Corps. And he got an order one time to report to the airport to General Vandergrift. Of course, nobody knew what the orders were, so He reported there, and they flew back to Honolulu. It was sealed orders. Nobody knew what the score was, but he flew back to Honolulu with General Vandergrift. And while he was in Honolulu, he flew from the South Pacific to Honolulu. And when he got to Honolulu, he got a cold. And the cold went into pneumonia. And they shipped him from Honolulu to San Diego. And he was in Balboa Park Naval Hospital in San Diego. They put him in an oxygen tent. And while he was there in the oxygen tent, he got a heart attack. And all his arteries hardened up, and in about 9 months it was all over. But the doctor said from what he went through at the age of 48, he was 48 when he went in the war. From what he went through, when he passed away, his whole system was equivalent to of a man 80 years old. So he was sent by special escort from San Diego to Sawtell Military Hospital up in Los Angeles. And he had full military honors at the burial. And my Helen, which is my wife, she was my wife. She was born in New York. See, my mother was born in Dublin, Ireland. And my mother was born in New York City. And most of her family was brothers and sisters. But her people come from Dublin, Ireland. And in fact, her mother and father were both graduates of Dublin University, the most perfect English-speaking university in the world. My father was born in New York, in Pennsylvania, I believe. And his folks come from somewhere in Germany. But anyway, it dates back to Prussia, about 300-400 years, something like that. And he was an engineer, my father was, and he came to New York to do some sort of engineering work at St. Luke's Hospital in New York. And my mother was a nurse there at the hospital. So he met my mother at the hospital there in New York. That's how it happened. That's where they got married, in New York City. And they were married for quite some long time. And my dad died in 1921 from double pneumonia. He was supposed to go to Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, to take charge of Child's building. See, my dad was chief engineer of the Child's company, Child's Restaurants, had a chain in quite a few states. And he was supposed to go to Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, to take charge of the building, which I understand even today is the largest building up there. And that was the day he died, the day he was supposed to leave to go up there and take charge of that. And about 11 months later, my mother followed him with double pneumonia too. My sister Catherine, she had passed away just recently. She was the youngest. And then next came my brother Red, or William. And then came my brother Arthur. And then 11 months later, I was born. November 27th, 1906. And then after me came my sister Marion. After my sister Marion came my brother Jim. After my brother Jim came my brother, who we called Judge, Ernest. And then the oldest was my brother Eddie. And then there was 3 others that just never made it. There was Donald, Elliot, and Alice. If Alice had lived, she would have been the oldest of them all, even older than Eddie, but she didn't. But that's about the history of my family. But one thing I will say, everyone in my family has the most, if I have to say it myself, the most beautiful sense of humor that anyone could ever have. They love fun, they love to laugh, and they just have a ball. Now, my son, he has a good sense of humor. But as Helen would say, he has a different type of humor than I have. His humor is more sophisticated than mine. So, but still, it's funny. Everyone in the family on my brother's side, their children, my side, and just about every one of them, right down the line, have a wonderful sense of humor. They're just a great bunch. But getting back to my childhood, I don't think, well, I just hope that everyone has a chance to have as pleasant a childhood as I have, and as I have had and remember. There's nothing but pleasant memories. Of course, there was times when we didn't think it was so hot then, but when you think back of it today, it was. It was real good. There were times when we would like to go out and play in the snow in the winter or go sleigh riding or something, but the law still stood. When we come home from school, we had our chores to do. We had to make our beds, we had to clean room, we had to wash dishes, we had to clean floors, and it was just pleasant. Of course, sometimes in the evenings, on the winter evenings when we come home from school, we'd have to hurry up because darkness set in quick. But we had fun. It was real good. I've seen snow 17 feet deep. I've seen salt water frozen completely across to the river. And when salt water freezes, why, it's real cold. And summer times, why, they were all pleasant memories. We were ready for most anything. We were barefoot, and all we wore was a bathing suit and a pair of pants. So we go over to the farms or go swimming. All we had to do was take our pants off and we were in. And I remember one winter we were fishing for tomcod, and the wind hit me in the back while I was bent over fishing through a hole in the ice. And over I went, right through the ice, into the water. Well, I got caught under the ice for a while, and I found the opening finally and pulled myself out. And I only lived about half a block or so from the water. But before I got home, I was just a moving lump of ice. But if I could think any more some other time, like, maybe we'll put some more on tape. Until then, like, see you.